On a sunny afternoon in the Old West, Buster Scruggs rides across vast, desolate lands. Though he appears to be a cheerful cowboy singing while riding his horse, in reality, he's the most dangerous gunslinger in the region, with a generous bounty on his head. During his travels, he finds a cantina where he decides to stop for a drink. However, the bartender refuses to sell him whiskey, explaining that it's a banned drink only served to outlaws. Buster tries to clarify that, despite his clean appearance and cheerful attitude, he is also an outlaw, but no one believes him, and a cowboy is even willing to confront him to kick him out of the place. The cowboy soon regrets underestimating him, as Buster proves to be incredibly fast, drawing his weapon in a second and shooting everyone in the bar. After the incident, Buster continues his journey and arrives in Frenchman's Gulch, a town he's never visited before. His first stop is the local saloon, where he must leave all his weapons at the entrance due to a no-guns policy. He then joins a poker game at the nearest table, under the condition that he play with the hand left by the previous player. Upon looking at the cards, Buster realizes it's the infamous dead man's hand, which is why the last player walked away. He refuses to play it, angering the other players, especially Joe, an intimidating man. Joe, believing himself above the rules, pulls out a hidden gun to threaten Buster. But Buster reacts quickly, slamming a loose board on the table to deflect the gun, which fires into its owner's chest, killing Joe instantly. The saloon becomes tense, but Buster starts singing an improvised song about Joe, getting everyone to sing and dance. The fun ends when Joe's brother appears, having heard about what happened, and challenges Buster to a duel for revenge. Once again, Buster proves to be the fastest gunslinger, shooting each of the man's fingers before killing him, while admiring himself in a mirror for style. Confident and as satisfied as ever, Buster is caught off guard when a new singing cowboy named The Kid arrives in town and challenges him to a duel. This showdown is even quicker than the previous ones, but this time Buster is the one who dies, finally encountering someone faster than him. As his soul leaves the earthly world, Buster reflects that he should have seen it coming. No one can remain the best forever. He even joins in singing along with the kid's song. In New Mexico, a young cowboy finds an isolated bank and attempts to rob it. The teller pretends to cooperate and bends down to collect the money, but he's actually preparing hidden weapons to use as a distraction. The cowboy dodges the shots and quickly grabs the money from the register, but as he exits, the teller opens fire again, forcing him to hide behind a well. The cowboy tries to fight back, but it's useless. The teller has covered his body in pots and pans that deflect every bullet. Thanks to this protection, the teller gets close enough to knock the cowboy unconscious. When the cowboy wakes up hours later, he finds himself tied to a tree with his hands strapped to his horse's saddle. It turns out that a hunting party has already declared him guilty and sentenced him to death, giving him a chance to say his last words. Before he can speak, they are attacked by a group of Comanche warriors who kill everyone in the group, except for the cowboy, whom they leave tied to the horse, considering it a cruel joke so he can suffer slowly. The cowboy spends hours trying to keep the horse still to avoid being hanged. Eventually, he gets lucky when a mule driver finds him, cuts the rope, and lets him join him for safety. However, his luck doesn't last. The mule driver turns out to be a cattle thief, and when another group appears, he flees and leaves the cowboy behind. Soon after, the cowboy is arrested again, taken to a town, found guilty, and sentenced to the gallows. As he awaits the end, he fixes his eyes on a young woman in the crowd, wishing the last thing he sees is a beautiful face. Not far from there, an old impresario travels with Harrison, a young man with no arms or legs but a beautiful voice he uses to recite classics by Shakespeare, Lincoln, and others. The wagon they travel in becomes a stage each time they stop in a town, and while Harrison performs, the impresario collects money from the audience. He also feeds Harrison, applies his makeup, and helps him with his basic needs. It's a sad and frustrating life, and the impresario grows increasingly tired of Harrison. When they visit brothels, he doesn't even pay for a girl for Harrison. He leaves him in the same room, turns him around, and enjoys himself while Harrison is forced to listen. As they travel deeper into remote mountain towns, their show garners less and less attention, and they barely earn any money. One night, the impresario notices another wagon that's drawing a crowd with a chicken that can peck out the answers to basic math problems. Seeing an opportunity, the impresario buys the chicken and begins caring for it with the same dedication he once had for Harrison, who starts to worry about what will come next. The following day, the impresario stops the wagon next to a bridge and tests the depth of the river by tossing in a large stone. The result is just what he expected, and moments later, he continues on his way with only the chicken as a passenger. Harrison has been thrown into the river. Speaking of rivers, one flows down from a mountain where an old gold prospector arrives in search of a vein. At first, his pan only collects small specks of gold, but by counting each attempt, he traces the trail leading to the source. He even camps by the river and survives by fishing and stealing eggs from bird nests. After many days of digging small holes, the prospector manages to triangulate the gold source and begins to dig deeper. His calculations prove accurate, and he finally uncovers a rich gold vein that will make him wealthy. But there's no time to celebrate. A young man who had been following him arrives and shoots him. After lighting a cigarette to celebrate, the young man jumps into the hole to move the body, but the prospector, who is only pretending to be dead, ambushes him. The old man fights for the weapon and kills the young man. He then checks his own wound and confirms it was a clean shot through his back without damaging anything vital. After bandaging himself, he finishes extracting the gold, buries the young man in the hole, and leaves the valley on horseback with his newfound fortune. Meanwhile, siblings Alice and Gilbert have joined a caravan traveling along the Oregon Trail. Gilbert isn't exactly a good businessman, but he claims to have arranged a partnership with a man willing to marry Alice upon their arrival in Oregon. With them travels Gilbert's dog, President Pierce, who annoys the other travelers with his constant barking. Shortly after the journey begins, Gilbert suffers a violent coughing fit and dies from what appears to be cholera. The caravan leaders, Billy and Arthur, help Alice bury him and ask if she wants to continue the journey or return home. Realizing she has nothing to go back to, Alice decides to stay with the caravan to try her luck in Oregon. The next day, Alice receives more bad news. The young man Gilbert hired to guide their wagon claims he was promised a $400 salary, with half to be paid at the midway point. Alice has no money, and if Gilbert had any, it's now buried with him. It's too late to turn back, so she asks Billy and Arthur for advice. They tell her the amount is suspiciously high and likely a lie. Billy suggests ignoring the guide for now, and when they reach the midway point, he'll scare him into confessing. Also, due to constant complaints about President Pierce, and because Alice doesn't want to take responsibility for the dog, Billy helps her get rid of it by taking it to a valley and scaring it off with a warning shot. The journey continues smoothly, and Alice and Billy spend more time together, discovering they share many ideas. When the guide insists on his payment again, Billy tries to talk to him but fails, so he offers Alice another solution. He proposes marriage, suggesting that by marrying her, he can assume Gilbert's debt and build a stable home together. Alice, surprised by the proposal, accepts, as she has also begun to feel affection for Billy. Days later, Arthur becomes concerned after spotting recent footprints in the area and checks on the travelers, only to find that Alice is missing. It turns out Alice had heard President Pierce barking nearby and went to see him harassing some prairie dogs, wandering farther than she realized. Arthur finds her and tries to get her back quickly, but they don't make it in time and are ambushed by a group of Native Americans. With 2 guns available, Arthur uses one to defend himself and gives the other to Alice, telling her to end her life if he dies, since being captured would mean torture. Arthur proves to be a skilled shooter and drives the attackers away with accurate shots, but just when he thinks it's over, a warrior surprises him and knocks him down. Pretending to be unconscious, Arthur waits until the warrior gets close and shoots him. When he returns to Alice's side, he finds the worst. She believed he was dead and used the gun as instructed. Covering her with his coat, Arthur returns to the caravan with President Pierce, wondering how he will explain everything to Billy. Elsewhere, 5 people travel by stagecoach to Fort Morgan. After singing for much of the journey and annoying everyone, Thigpen explains that he and his partner Clarence regularly take this route transporting cargo, alluding to something on the roof of the coach without clarifying. With Thigpen finally quiet, the passengers begin to talk, prompting the trapper to share a story about a past relationship with a Hunkpapa woman that blossomed despite not sharing a language. Mrs. Betjeman, a devout Christian, is offended by the story and reminds everyone that there are only two types of people, the good and the sinful. This sparks a debate about human nature that includes the Frenchman René, while Thigpen and Clarence watch with amusement. When René questions whether Mrs. Betjeman has remained faithful during her years apart from her husband, she becomes so indignant she nearly has a breakdown. René tries to ask the driver to stop the coach, but Thigpen explains that the company policy forbids stopping for any reason. To calm her, Clarence sings a melancholic folk song that soothes her, but also brings Thigpen to tears. Curious about the mysterious men, the trapper asks what business they are in, and Thigpen reveals they are bounty hunters. Their method is foolproof. Thigpen distracts their targets with stories while Clarence eliminates them quickly. Thigpen also confesses he enjoys watching people die. He finds beauty in their final expressions. This obviously unsettles the other three passengers, who now fear what awaits them at their destination. When the stagecoach arrives at Fort Morgan, Thigpen and Clarence retrieve their cargo, which turns out to be a corpse, and enter the hotel where they'll stay. René, Mrs. Betjeman, and the trapper take longer to get off, feeling cautious and frightened, but eventually enter the hotel. René closes the door behind them after seeing the coach leave, realizing there will be no way out if they need one. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to my channel, and hit the bell so you never miss a recap. See you in the next one.